Hi, hello, it's me, Julian Greystoke, sounding all congested because it's allergy season. This is Adam, and we are here for a video that he has somehow convinced me to do. Him and like 3 or 4 other people wanted this, so here I am. This video is probably gonna completely flop. So some of you may know that Adam's favorite book series is The Wheel of Time, and you may also know that I do not really like long, chunky book series. So I have been resistant to reading any of it, but because the TV show is coming back with the season 2, some of the season may already be out as we speak as of this video going up, but maybe I'll beat like the whole season because I think it's going to come out like 1 episode at a time, so
first 3 are dropping together.
We'll see. But anyway, trying to capitalize on that by convincing me to read the first book, and probably only the first book, in The Wheel of Time.
Unless you really love this and give lots of great feedback and help me convince them to do more than the first book. You have to help me here. I'm really desperate for your reinforcements.
I would really need to see more than 3 people comment that they want to see more of this for me to do more of this, because it's a big, chunky, giant book series. I don't know if you know that. Speaking of which, we are going to be spoiling like everything. So if you don't want spoilers, not only for this book, but we will probably mention spoilers in the other books as well, and the TV show. Everything will be spoiled. So you are not safe from spoilers in this video. All right, so what we're going to do is I am listening to the Eye of the World at work, and then I am making notes in my phone, and then I'm gonna come home and we're gonna try to film as soon as possible. I'll go over what I have read, and then I will talk about my thoughts, and Adam will share his thoughts as a great big giant fanboy of the series, and we'll just go from there. So I started listening last night, and I will kind of try to remember what all happened. We started out with main character Rand and his dad going to the village because there's a festival coming up and they had to drop off alcohol, I think.
Yes.
Even though they are sheep farmers, they are dropping off alcohol, so I guess they do both. And they hear all kinds of talk in the town about the celebration that's coming up, but also we hear a lot about how like the winter is like super long and like shit is not happy. And I'll talk a little bit about that in my notes later. Rand hangs out with his buddy Matt, and we hear a little bit about like a girl that he likes and just some other like village things going on. I'm gonna probably get names wrong, but we hear about Nynaeve, who is the wisdom of the village, who everybody doesn't like. We don't really see too much of her. And then Rand and his dad go back home that night. Oh, and also Rand sees like a creepy guy on the road whose like cloak doesn't move in the wind. That's a big thing. And they go back home, and then as they're settling in for the night, they get attacked by Trollocs, which are these giant animal man creatures, and they escape, but Rand's daddy gets injured, so he drags him back to the town where Nynaeve is supposed to heal him, but she takes one look at him and is like, nope, can't do it. And so Rand goes to these visitors in the town, one of which turns out to be a Aes Sedai, which is this world's version of wizards.
A wizard did it.
Who can heal Rand's daddy. And also everybody hates the Aes Sedai in this village. Like, it's really hit home that the Aes Sedai are the villains in every story, which I'll also talk a little bit about later. And then Moraine, who is the Aes Sedai, and her warder Lan are like, actually, we need you to go with us because you're the right age, and we need your 2 friends, Matt and Perrin, to also go with us. We're fucking leaving, goodbye. And they all go and leave. And that's pretty much as far as I got. They left. And also Rand had a dream about a couple of towers somewhere in there. But I got to the point pretty much where they had just left the village. And I'll pick it up again tonight. But that's as far as I got. Lots of stuff happening.
I have a random side tangent because of a previous discussion we had. But like, Egwene is like the belle of the story, living in a small provincial town. She's the only character that actually like willingly and of her own volition leaves.
I did kind of forget about her because she's not a very big part of the beginning of the book. But the girl that Rand likes
who wouldn't
straight up invites herself to the adventuring party. So she's just like, I know you guys are leaving and I'm coming, you don't have a choice, so Good for her. Girl power. We love to see it. All right.
Go ahead.
So now I will look at my notes.
Notes.
My notes in my notes app. I hate writing notes on my phone, but it was the easiest. The first note I wrote was that I was excited to see Bella right away. Bella is a horse character who's definitely going to be my favorite character so far. 10 out of 10, Bella. And she was like in the first scene, so I fangirled a little bit. We also meet Rand's dad right away, which struck me a little bit because, like, in the TV show, which I have seen the first season anyway, we don't get a lot of Rand's dad, and he has a lot more of a relationship with him in the book, it seems like. So, but then Rand starts thinking horny thoughts, and he remembers his dad's, like, advice to, like, go into to the void, I guess, when you have too much fear, anxiety, whatever, too many thoughts, you need to go into the void. And I was like, yes, go to the void for your fear, your anxiety, your horniness.
So, I mean, as an allosexual, I didn't. What he said in that scene has never piqued me as like horny thoughts.
Well, he was thinking about his girl, and I was like, he's totally like, he's a teenage boy, like, and thinking about his girl. Of course, he's horny. I did like and notice how realistically young, the characters seemed, and because I have heard parts of the later books and how much they like grow up, it was cool to see them be like so young and immature. Him and Matt and just like all of their interactions. I'm like, oh, these are dumb teenage boys. 100%. Just a couple of idiots rolling around town. It did mean that the girls had to be, like, all the girls and women that we see are a lot more mature. And I think that also kind of adds, I know a lot of people have complained that the women are poorly written. And I haven't encountered anybody being poorly written yet, but I have encountered a lot of times you have female characters who are around to be motherly, guiding towards the men. The young girls who are the same age as the boys are supposed to be more mature than the boys, which really isn't fair. Like, girls should be allowed to be goofy and immature too, but no, they gotta be like very mature.
That's very accurate for this book, but they do get to be more immature next book for a little bit.
Okay.
But then after next book, everybody's grown up.
I haven't encountered anything.
Mature, but
I haven't encountered anything too cringy about the female characters yet. Very many vibes of the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. So many, like.
And I
know that's intentional.
Yeah.
But I was like noting them. I was like, oh my goodness. Even they start out talking about fireworks at their festival, and I'm like, yeah, we're just doing all of it, huh?
Shadowy black figure, check. Fireworks, check. Tobacco and wool, check.
Wizard on the scene.
Yep. It's all there. We don't have a Tom Bombadil figure.
I mean, yes, we do.
We do?
Yeah, the Gleeman.
The Gleeman. I suppose. It's kinda, I guess.
And then there's a lot of Raven slander going on, and I don't appreciate it. This book is very anti-Ravens, and I'm not okay with that. Like, what? They're keeping, like, ravens are carrion birds, and I'm like, yeah, sometimes they eat carrion, but they eat a lot of other shit, too.
I mean, really, they really should be just using bald eagles for most
Buzzards,
of this.
Like, any predator bird will eat carrion, but they're like, these are specifically carrion birds, and that's why they're bad, and I'm like, that's wrong.
Huge Corvid fan. I don't appreciate their slander. As well.
I really like the term gleeman for, like, professional bards, like master bards. I don't know if that's just in this book and that's something that the author came up with, but I really like that term.
I
think it's a good name for it. I wrote here that I'm happy having watched the show before this, which seems like it would be such a weird thing, like to be happy to have watched the show before you read the book, but we get so few physical descriptions of the characters that I could easily slot in what they look like in the show and happily do so. And, like, have a more diverse cast than I think we were intended to have in my mind just because the show gave us one. I honestly expected more physical descriptions, but they're really, like, what the characters are wearing, yes, but their actual, like, physical, like, what color is their skin? What shape are their faces? Are they tall, short? Like, Lan is tall and Rand is tall, but that's basically all we get.
The weather.
Everybody is very concerned because, like, spring isn't coming and the weather's been really bad this year, and I was like, that is so relatable, because I've been having a lot of anxiety this year about the drought that we've been having, and I'm like, that is too relatable, and their world is, like, ending, and so's ours. Relatable. We need to fight the big bad so we can get our weather back on track here.
Right.
The big bad is corporations.
Oh yeah, for us it's the corporations.
Everyone keeps slandering Nynaeve, and that makes me like her because she sounds like she's fighting an uphill battle with a town full of idiots who refuse to respect her, and I support her hitting them with sticks. I know one reviewer I've seen of this series said that she started out not liking Nynaeve, and I already like her, and she's really barely been in the story yet. I'm like, yes. Everybody we meet is like, she's too young. Oh, she's a woman. She's a young woman, so she can't be wise. And then she hits them with sticks, and I'm like, good for her. Maybe when we get to interact with her more, I will like her less, but like, because a lot of people, it's not just one reviewer, I've heard a lot of people say they didn't like Nynaeve at first, and I'm like, so far I am 100% a Nynaeve stan. Then when Rand and his dad go home, the cow drying up is supposed to be a sign that like weird stuff is going down, but that's not unusual at all. Like, the cow would be drying up this time of year. Cows don't just give milk all year long. You have to breed them. And so if they didn't breed this cow, and even if they did breed this cow, she would be drying up this time of year. So that's not weird. It definitely feels like the author knew a decent amount about horses, which I'm pleased with, but not a lot about cows. The fever dream exposition made me LOL when his dad is like mostly unconscious and just starts expositioning like at his son, like, oh, by the way, you're not my real son. I'm like, thanks, Dad. We needed that information. That's important. Thank goodness you had the exact right fever dream for us to get that info.
Thanks, exposition, unconscious dad.
Yeah. And then Moraine was like, hey, let me know if you have any weird dreams. And he immediately falls asleep and has a weird dream. So it's like, I'm like, did she trigger it? Like, did she do something to him? Or is that just really just a plot convenience? Okay, I'm going to start having the weird dreams now. Do you know? Like, do we find out?
She did not trigger it.
It just seemed very convenient that immediately after she mentioned, hey, you might start having weird dreams, he had one. I was like, okay, we're not going to space that out a little bit. Like, that's why I wondered if maybe she did it.
If she had stayed near to Rand, she should have been able to protect it. Like, her presence should have weakened it a little bit, and if she was actively aware of it, she could have stopped them, is kind of what she's going. She's probably a little bit afraid that the Dark One is touching them.
Oh, touching them.
Moraine, the Lady Moraine is afraid the Dark One's touching one of her 3 boys.
Don't touch boys. All right, let's get through.
So
Almost
she wants
done.
to stop them.
I'm assuming he couldn't have had a dream like this before now. Like, the attack had to happen for him to start having these dreams. Because there's, to my knowledge, no mention of him having weird dreams until this one.
I suspect the shadowy figure meeting them on the road is enough to trigger the dreams. Like that, it might not have needed to have been the attack.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first time that Rand has slept since the Myrtle on the dark figure on the road.
For an author who likes to give his work a lot of space, that seemed like very like abrupt. Like, she says it, he does it, like, immediately. And then my last one is, because they've all come together and all the boys are together, we have the bow one, the axe one, the sword one, and the girl.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's like Adventuring Party 101 here. Those are all of the notes that I wrote down. I kind of also wanted to mention, like, when I was thinking about it today, the author's style is very simplistic, prose-wise. He's not flowery, he's not purple, but he does well with the simple prose that he uses. So, like, I never really noticed how simple the prose were. I had to stop and like concentrate because he was using those simple prose to tell a story well, in my opinion. Yeah, compliment for your man.
All right.
I also don't know, I'm in this weird place where I don't know if I would be enjoying this if I didn't have all of the context that I already have.
That's me.
Yeah, he's the context. If I had come into this like completely blind, just picked up this book, would I be enjoying it at all? Because it's slow moving. It's a slow mover. We got to chapter like 5 before we got the inciting incident, which most people would say is too many chapters before the inciting incident. But I didn't mind. 1, because the storytelling was pretty solid, and 2, because I already knew these characters kind of and knew where they were going and what's going to happen to them. So it was interesting to see like the baby forms of what I knew they were gonna turn into. Because honestly, I have cognizantly heard more of the ending books where they're more adulty and not so much of the beginning books. So like it was interesting to see like Baby Rand and Baby Rand is kind of a wiener, by the way. Can I just say he's kind of a wiener? As
a hint or evidence of that, Julian's second favorite character is Pips.
Yes. I will say Robert Jordan, right? That's the other. It's like, I'm impressed with his writing horses so far. He's remembered things like that horses get tired, that they have just different personalities. Like one of the horses wanted to go, 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 and the other horse was like, maybe I don't want to run that fast. And like, so he's doing a really good job with that. Most fantasy authors that I read just assume that all horses are kind of the same and they don't care what you do to them. Cloud wanted to go, go, go. And I was like, yeah, accurate. Some horses would just be like, ah. And some horses would be like, I'd really rather not. And Rand's thinking about Bella and worrying that she's going to fall behind because she's just like a cart horse. And like all of that felt very realistic. So yay. But now we should probably end this because we have things to do today.
Well,
you have one more thought?
One last thing, which is something you brought up last night, which was a question in context of like Rand, and if Moraine, the wizard, hadn't just healed their dad, would Rand have left the village and gone with Moraine? And I don't think so. And some interviews with Robert Jordan very much imply that he wouldn't have. And like the reality is, spoilers to the future, is Moraine used magic to make sure Matt and Perrin would go.
Oh, ooh.
And she used that magic on Rand, and it wasn't as effective. And so, like, probably, like, her magic probably failed on Rand. And if he wasn't all, like, duty and obligation, and the wizard hadn't just healed his dad, that he was, like, desperately losing, Rand probably wouldn't have left. Which makes, like, Egwene and in the near future, Nynaeve, the two who are like not forced to leave and choose on their own to like, yes, I'm gonna go off and do an adventure. Taking, like, I'm leaving the small provincial town, I'm taking the reins of fate into my own hands, and I'm doing the thing.
Women just out here doing the thing. The boys need magic to, like, push them along. That is, like, I was talking to Adam last night about it, a good example of how an author, like, it's all contrivances, right? Everything we write is contrivances, but it's up to the author to make it feel like it's not contrived. Because it is just a series of contrivances. His dad just happens to get injured in exactly the right way to make him go to Moraine. And that thing is the very thing that triggers him on the adventure that spans how many books?
13.
That makes him go on 13 books worth of an adventure and become the chosen one that saves the world. No. But it didn't feel contrived when I was reading it. So that's the key to being an author, is to take contrivances and make them feel like, of course, those are the things that happened and needed to happen. Because it is extremely contrived. All right, cool. I don't hate it so far, but the book is still young, so let's see what we get. I'll see you next for the next section. Oh, we don't have to do a goodbye. It will just be coming right back. Sing of Manetheren, wait for the blood of Aemon. We're back. Hi, hello. It was probably only a few seconds for you. It's now nighttime, and I have listened to some more of the audiobook, so we're here again with more thoughts.
And Nigel.
Anyway, so a lot happened in the section that I listened to tonight. I do listen to it on like a faster speed, so like I'm getting through it. So let's see if I can remember everything. So we left, Teen Girl Squad here left home, and they went to a city, and it certainly was a city, and they went to an inn, and like Moraine has like some connections and people who are really loyal to her for reasons. So they stayed at an inn, and the Gleeman did a performance, and we got like more hints about like evil things happening, and then the boys all had nightmares, and Rand decided that he was gonna walk around the city, but that lasted like 10 minutes because he met these White Cloak guys, so he went crying to Mommy Moraine. And they left the city, and the White Cloaks were like finger wag, but didn't actually do anything at this time. So our heroes have departed again. They're back on the road, and they're just running into just like waves of bullshit is just happening to them. So, like, attacked, and then they get a lull, and then they're attacked, and then they get a lull. Egwene. I still can't keep Nynaeve and Egwene apart. I thought for sure that once I, like, read the book, I could keep Nynaeve and Egwene, like, their characters separate. I still can't. Okay, so Egwene finds out that she could maybe be an Aes Sedai, so that's exciting. Was it in the city? Did we meet Nynaeve in the city, or did she meet them after the city?
In the city. They met in the city.
I couldn't remember, like, what the sequence of events was. But Nynaeve shows up. She's, like, the wisdom just from their village. Just like Giorgio showed up. So Nynaeve shows up, and she's like, give me back these people you fucking stole from my village. And then Moiraine is like, no, and Nynaeve is like, bet, I'm just gonna follow you now, I guess, because I don't know, I bet nothing else on. You're gonna take these kids from my village, I'm just gonna have to supervise you from here on out.
Well, you missed a thing. Nynaeve came, followed them to this city, and was able to track them right to the inn they were staying.
Yes, and I do kind of like mention that in my notes later, like.
Okay.
And
then she's there glaring at them and like, I ain't letting you take them nowhere.
Give me back the humans you stole.
And then they all go to bed. I'm like, we'll talk about this in the morning.
Oh yeah, no, I do remember that. They were all like, we'll talk about it in the morning. For some reason.
Then Brand had an encounter with a tall, dark man who was a Ringwraith stand-in, which is the why have I forgotten their name?
It's your favorite
They have
book.
like 9 of them. Why can't I remember any of them? Ringwraith is the only thing
Ringwraith, it's a Ringwraith. Was that the dream, or was this like
that was in
a real life? Okay.
So like, they have a bigger name. Anyways, they encounter with a lurk. A real encounter with a lurk. And that's like Spawn of the Dark One. And like, Moiraine and Lan can feel it. And they're like, and it's in the inn with that. And they're like, fuck, no more bedtime for y'all. We just running from the Dark One.
Okay.
So that's why, like, she followed them all the way here, but now they're running from the Dark One.
So she's just also there.
Also running from the Dark One.
She could probably leave and go home, but she's not.
No, she needs to save her boys and girl.
She's just like decided this is her thing now. She could leave. I know you're like, yes, she needs to protect them, but like I want to feel that more. She just mostly seems like she's there because she's got nothing else to do. Like she's just there to be crabby and
I mean, she just walked by herself for like a week and a half.
And she could walk by herself for a week and a half back. I would be like
to these
I
folk.
would be like, monsters are trying to kill me. I'm going home.
She's like, the wisdom.
Yeah, the village is back there. She's the wisdom. Aside from that, so then they have to flee because things are trying to kill them, as they do. And they get to this spooky, like, city where they bunker down for the night because Moiraine needs a little nappy nap because she used all her magic to chase some monsters away.
Mommy Moiraine needs her nap time.
Needs a little nappy nap. And of course, the boys are like unsupervised children in a candy shop because they are immediately like, let's go poke things. And so they wander into the city, which Lan does not say, hey, you fucks, stop that. They just go. And of course
there was a back door, okay? Lan can't watch the front door and the back door.
He really needs to get some eyes on the back of his head. So they go poke something, of course, and it turns out to be evil, and an evil bald man. Evil, short, bald man. He was described basically described to look like Vincini from The Princess Bride.
That seemed about right. Yeah.
So the boys run from him, and they get back, and they're like...
He wouldn't run from Vincini.
Yeah, they run from him, and they get back to Mommy Moiraine, who is now awake, and she's like, oh yeah, that can happen here. Don't do that again. And then... the Trollocs show up, even though it's supposed to be like the Trollocs don't want to enter this place. But the Trollocs are super actually willing to enter this place.
I wouldn't say super willing.
They were surprisingly willing. I thought it would take them longer to get into this place. It felt like we were in the city a lot longer in the TV show. So I expected them to be there for longer. But they fled pretty much immediately after Mommy Moraine had her nap.
Mommy Moraine had a several hour nap while the boys were getting up to mischief.
Yeah, it was just a couple of hours though. Like, I thought they'd be there for a while. So they're running again, and then people are getting separated. People end up in a river, because they're heading for a river because the Trollocs don't like the river. And there's this secondary monster, evil smoke thing in the town that's separating them. But they all, well, some of them... Yeah, which I wish was more of a thing. Like, I was expecting it to be more of a thing, and it was just sort of just a device to separate them. Some of them wound up on a boat. Lan and Rand and I want to say Perrin ended up on the boat. Or am I wrong? Like, who
you got
was on
one
the
of
boat?
those right.
Okay, who's on the boat?
Wow. Maybe I'm going to turn the book speed down a little bit there,
I can't keep track
girl.
of these boys, at least not right now.
Rand did end up on the boat.
And I thought for sure Lan was on there too.
No, older male father.
No, it was the other daddy. Other daddy.
daddy.
Okay, yeah, you're
Tom
right.
Bombadil
It was
ended
Tom.
up on the boat.
It was Tom, the other daddy. I have one issue that I have.
They're even named Tom. Tom Bombadil and
Yeah,
Tom Mer. Oh,
yeah.
You're right.
I have that in
you're
my
right.
notes as
Okay,
well. That
all
that's
right.
the same guy. I do have a note that listening to it, Rand and Lan sound really similar. And so sometimes if I'm not really concentrating, I'll end up being like, who did that? Was it Rand or Lan?
If it was stupid, it was Rand. If it was cool, it was Lan.
Yeah. So I think that's why my brain was like Lan, Lan is also in the boat, but he's not on the boat. It's Tom, Daddy Tom.
Daddy Tom
So it's,
and the Mischief Maker.
And Matt. Okay. One of the interchangeable boys. I know they get personalities later, but right now they're pretty interchangeable. Matt likes to poke things a little bit more than the other two.
They will start to have personalities now.
All right, but they're on the boat. So some characters are on the boat. Don't really know where the other characters are at the moment. And that's as far as I got. On the boat. We're on a boat, motherfuckers. Is there anything that you feel like I missed? A lot happened.
Well, you didn't talk about Taryn Ferry? Taryn Ferry.
Oh, I completely forgot. Yeah, that was at the very beginning of my listening. That the ferry where they go across the first river. And then Moraine destroys the man's fucking boat in a whirlpool.
Mm-hmm. And this is, Miss Shillelagh is one of her most impressive feats.
Yeah, no, I have mention of that in my notes, so.
It's like, his boat is sunk, but like, later that night or something, she shows up and like...
makes him ferry her across the water. Her
and her horse.
Yeah.
And the man's boat just sunk. I'm like, where does he poop out another boat?
She comes, she demands a boat, he made one. But yeah, I'm sorry, I missed out that at the beginning. I am sorry. That is another moment that is definitely like Lord of the Rings. It's the ferry. It's the exact scene, except for this time the wizard made a whirlpool and sank the boat. Did I miss out anything else?
I'm scanning through what I recollect of it, and I mean, you forgot the names of places like Shadow Logan.
I'm never going to remember the names of places or characters. There's a lot of names. He names every single side character we encounter.
Well, there was the one guy in the corner that was glaring at them glumly.
He doesn't have a name yet, but I bet he does soon.
No, he doesn't get a name.
Really?
No, that one never comes back.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Well, unless... like, to my
so the
knowledge...
dude with the face scar...
just
never comes back?
Never comes back.
What the fuck? Here I had it in my notes to praise Robert Jordan for, like, feeling like, you know, everything was like a moving piece and all of it was useful. And he put this whole ass face scar guy in the book and just left it there, and it does nothing.
He probably burnt down the inn.
No. Not good enough. Never mind, I take back my praise. So my first one is a question for you. Do we ever learn specifically why the two rivers specifically is just very anti-Aes Sedai? Like, they're the boogeyman in all of their stories.
So, it's kind of like, in America, you've got two political parties, and the other political party is evil, except in this case, the Aes Sedai are all the political parties, and they're definitely evil. So, like, the Aes Sedai is the opposite of everyone's political party. It's like every nation has their own political party, and then there's the Aes Sedai. So it's like, hey, we're the Wisconsin political party, and then there's the evil Aes Sedai. It's just, and like the Two Rivers is less anti-Aes Sedai than a lot of places. Like 50% of the world hates Aes Sedai.
Okay.
So that's why.
Did not get that yet.
I mean, they might not have explained why, because they're like, they're marching up to the door and like, oh, by the way, Bumpkins, I'm Alice, and this is our Arden.
I don't remember. I do remember Alice, though, because it was such a modern-sounding name. But yeah, I assumed that she was just using a different identity because she wisely wanted to hide because the enemy's eyes and ears could be anywhere. So, versus, like, wanting to hide that she was an Aes Sedai. Did not get that at all.
Yeah.
We have the fairy, okay. Narratively, sometimes when my camera bookmarks a section, it cuts out a little bit of dialogue, and it did so right here. I was asking, why is Tom the Gleeman here? Did Moraine magic him too? Or is he legitimately just along for the ride because he has nothing else going on?
He has a reason. It is revealed later on.
So he does. Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Like, I'm just like, my man, why are you here? I was also curious why Egwene was then so eager to learn about magic and that she could have magic when the Two Rivers folks are very anti-Aes Sedai. She was like, not horrified at all to find out that she could turn into an Aes Sedai. She was like, yes, I'm down. Teach me magic right this minute.
If you give Robert Jordan credit, it could be like, she's the only character that wants to leave the village. Mm-hmm. And it could be metaphorical of like trying to leave where you are repressed, because in a lot of rural culture, women are repressed, and go to a place where they have power and they're seeking freedom and power.
I guess if you read between the lines, you can see it, because she wanted to be the next wisdom, so she was already looking for as much power as she could get in her tiny village.
I mean, we only have 5 chapters in the village, and that was too much for you. And now you're complaining that we didn't get enough time in the village.
No, it's just like, it just feels like she should have been more resistant or a little bit horrified to find out that she was magical, instead of just being like, sweet, I can't wait to get to magic school. I have Rand is a little bit of a dingus.
Only a little bit?
I love how the fairy was swallowed by a whirlpool, and he was like, did a wizard do that? And he's like looking at Moraine like, Like you can see the pieces being put together in his mind, but it's gone real slow. If I was reading blind, I would be very suspicious of Tom. Because why is he here? I would be like, he is definitely up to some shit. He's basically the only one who's not really given what I feel is a satisfactory reason for him to be here. I know that he's a good guy because I know about his character, but if I was reading this blind, I'd be very suspicious of him.
He was the only other outsider left in the town after the attack. You know, he didn't want to be left behind, especially after outsiders stole away some kids.
Granted, but still, like narratively, just on a story level, if he was needed later, could they not have just met up with him later?
Well, that's what they decided in the show.
Yeah, like, why is he traveling with them? Like, legitimately. So I would be very suspicious and think that he was definitely, like, gonna turn out to be a spy or something. I have, yes, train all the boys to use their weapons, but not the girl. Yeah, she gets magic eventually, but she could probably use some, weapons training.
I mean, they're starting her with magic training.
Yeah, but she was like, I can make a little bitty light. And the boys are like, I learned to use an axe. Can we train her a little? No? All right.
That's a little.
I have Perrin is a superfluous character right now. His personality is axe. It's like his job is beach. He's really... I
mean...
I know he turns into a character later.
It doesn't... Yeah, he turns into hammer. He grows from axe to hammer.
He levels up. He definitely has a little bit more personality in the show, like, with an actor to portray him. They got into the city, and I'm like, now we're back to the Wheel of Time that I know. No one will be seated for the thrilling bath time scene. Even though I have no idea why he is there, Tom is my favorite human right now. I like him.
What point was that?
That was still within the town, I think. Or, like, at the edge of town. I don't know. He was doing shit. He was, like, Dad 2.0 when Lan wasn't being dad.
Gotcha.
And he's just entertaining. Like, I like a sassy, sort of pompous, noble-esque character. He's just a little bit full of himself, and I enjoy that about him.
I like how you've basically made Lan, Tom, and Moraine basically this polycule of parents for
They really are. Prove me wrong.
I can.
Then I have Nynaeve is a fucking legend. Because that's the point where she like tracked them, and I was like, this woman is the GOAT. I am team Nynaeve until the end of time. I don't care that, like, I think probably, I'm still trying to figure out why some people didn't like her at first, and I'm like, I think it's because she's opposed to what Moraine is doing, and we, the reader, are pretty sure that what Moraine is doing is correct. But I'm like, I can see it from her viewpoint, and like, this random wizard lady showed up and stole some children from my village. I'd be crabby too.
Yep.
I would be pissed off too. I would not trust this lady. I would not, like, I would talk back to this lady every opportunity I have. Like, Nynaeve is the GOAT, and I will not hear differently. If you just liked her at the beginning of these books, you're just wrong. You're just incorrect. Rand will tell anyone anything, except Moraine, that he's having dreams. They meet a stranger in the ruins, and Rand is just, like, talking to him. Like, stranger danger, Rand, what are you doing? Moraine is a way more useful wizard than Gandalf.
Yes.
Definitely.
100,000%.
There was a moment...
Gandalf has use sword as his magic ability.
Rain is like, fireball! Fireball! Luckily, the baddies follow video game rules and die when their leader does. Because Lan took out one of the guys and all of the... and all the Trollocs were like...
only say... it's not always the case, but yes.
Like, they were so screwed if Lan hadn't have killed that guy.
Yeah, they probably could have won that encounter. It would have been harder, though.
Would have been helpful if, they taught at least one other member of their party to use weapons.
They taught 3 of their party members to use weapons.
Not the
and
girl.
1, they were teaching. It takes longer.
Yeah, that's why you also teach her to use. She can use magic and a sword. I did feel that there was more accurate horse behavior in this scene. Like, all of the horses were dealing with this battle situation very differently. We mostly had Rand's horse, but we did hear, like, how the other horses were reacting a little bit, and I was like, yeah, that seems pretty accurate. Although, it is a really good thing that all of them are apparently very good horsemen, because they're doing some complicated shit, like taking off at a gallop and stuff like that, and if all of them were not skilled horsemen, they would just be on their asses in the dirt and not able to keep up. Horses are wheeling and turning and rearing and just all of this stuff, and they're managing to stay on for the most part. So yeah, I guess they train them right in Two Rivers. I was curious if there was some type of magic making the boys act like idiots in the ruined city. Like, was there something drawing them to go, like, exploring? Because they went from full-on battle, we could have died, to, yay, we're exploring a city, tee.
So, there definitely wasn't magic as Moraine wields magic, but I'm trying to get an accurate number, but there might literally be 16 different critical plot threads that are spawned from this that, like, the world would have ended, or the battles failed, or, like, everything ended up different if they didn't wander off and do this stupid shit right now. So it's the pattern, and the creator, and the fact that their Tavirin is forcing them to do stupid shit.
The author needed them to do stupid shit, then.
Yes.
It wasn't that it happened, it was how it was written. Similar to Egwene being, like, so instantly down with magic. It wasn't that she was down to learn magic that I had the problem, it was the speed at which she made that decision. And the same with the boys here. If they had been a little bit less giddy to just tee-hee-ta-ha off into the...
So, like, was it a bad decision? Absolutely. But as, like, a former young male, they're like, big-ass city to explore. And if I go ask, I know I'm being told no.
No, and then, like, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done it and it shouldn't have been a plot point. I just think that maybe more time could have been taken with their decision to do so. Because they just came out of a very pitched battle where they could have died. They're probably the first battle of that type that they have ever been in their lives. And they immediately, like, they have no, like, trauma or concern after that battle. They're just, like, told that they're safe because the Trollocs don't come here, and confidently walk out into, and like, I just wish they had been given, I feel like Robert Jordan vacillates wildly between giving people way too much or none at all in their decision making. Sometimes they got to sit and talk about something for hours. Sometimes a character just decides to do something, even if I feel like it maybe would have taken them longer to make that decision. I do wish that we got other points of view in the first book.
Yeah,
it would have helped. It would have helped a lot, because like Rand has to just randomly be listening into quite a few conversations.
This happens a lot in this
He's
book.
just like listening in, and I'm like, I get why, but we could have just had a different point of view, solve that problem. On that note, I feel like someone could have just said a quick, "Hey boys, don't go into the spooky city." Just a quick little, like, as
Don't
they're
wander off.
don't wander off. Lan could have just been like, Dad Claire.
Dad Claire.
So we will stop for now, and I don't know when I'm going to listen again. Maybe tomorrow when I'm driving I might listen again. Anyway, we'll see you for whenever I get to reading the next several chapters. I hope that at least some of you, let's be honest, Carrie, if you're watching this,
I'm watching!
you're enjoying it. You and Adam are watching this and enjoying it.
Cassidy's watching too. She's using it as a refresher. Despite not getting through the series, they have been through the first book several times.
Oh my
This will bring
goodness.
back.
Several times? I think one time is enough times.
When the next book comes out, you have to reread the books that preceded it.
I don't do that. I don't play like that. If I don't remember, I don't remember. I just assume it was in the first book.
Sing of Manatha, wait for the blood of Amen.
Hello, welcome back to Julian and Adam are hot and sweaty because we don't have central air. The Dogs fan is still on in the background. Hopefully you guys can't really hear it. The train is also here. We're here for more Wheel of Time. I listened to a little bit more while I was gaming today, so let's see if I can remember what happened. Because it's kind of slowed down significantly at this point.
Yep. Calm before the storm.
I hope that we get a storm, because I'm not loving the calm. It's a little bit like marching in place feeling, and I don't love.
Gotta drop the hints and foreshadowings for books 2 through 15.
You don't even know how many books are in your favorite
counted
series.
earlier. It'll be the same video. They'll know.
Okay, so what happened? All right, we kind of have 3 separate parties now going on. So we've got Rand, Matt, and Papa Bard, what's his name?
Tom
on a pirate ship. And the people on the pirate ship don't particularly like them, but Tom has convinced the pirate people.
Are they sure they don't like them, or they don't like something else?
They just seem real crabby, and they're not being very nice to our characters, but Tom has convinced them that Matt and Rand are apprentice gleemen that he is training, so that they will just like chill out. Party number 2 is Moraine, Lan, and Nynaeve?
Yes.
Okay. And they are butting heads. They're the butting heads party, which seems pretty understandable to me. Like, their headbutting all seems like very in character.
And this is
like,
Nynaeve being pissed off, like you complained about last time. Why is she just going along tra-la-la?
Yeah,
She's not just going along.
now like people are fucking missing, so she has every reason to be pissed off and mad at Moraine. And again, like, I still am trying to figure out why a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people, but I know that people didn't like Nynaeve in the first book. And I'm like, she seems like a very logical person to me. Her anger is on point. A wizard, who, they don't trust wizards, a wizard showed up in her town, stole some people from her town, and now has lost those people. Party 3, Perrin, Egwene, and they have picked up a man who I am calling Bjorn. But instead of bears, it's wolves. Okay, you said I missed one?
Yes,
What
you
did I
missed probably the most critical character.
Oh, Bella is with one of the groups. She's with their group. Bella's
Yes.
with their group, taking good care of them, as is her way as an older mare. And I have notes about Bella in
okay.
here.
Very good.
I definitely have notes about Bella. But in this group, they met Bjorn the Wolfman, and then now they're hanging out with hippie Romani analogs.
Yeah.
And that's about as far as I've gotten. It's like we've gotten these 3 groups and they're kind of established in their various holding patterns. And I'm hoping that we get them back together very soon because I'm bored of the holding patterns. Especially like Rand and Matt and Tom on the ship. We've jumped back to them twice, and I cannot tell you how much I don't care. All right, let's get to my notes. Tom at one point is like telling the story of their adventures, but he's embellishing it, so it doesn't look any really sus, and also he's making himself the hero. And that reminded me so much of the scene with Varric in Dragon Age 2, where you play that little section where he like clears out a manor house full of bad guys all by himself. And like Tom is giving Varric vibes, and I still
Indeed.
like Tom a lot. I have Nynaeve at one point complain because she's tracking them. She got separated from Maureen and Lan, but she's tracking them. And she complains that dresses aren't good for tracking because she's wearing a dress. But I was like, presumably she dressed herself that morning. Why would she ever wear a dress on the road where they're horseback riding and she might have to do tracking? Like, why is she wearing a dress right now?
She likes dresses.
Bad choice, Nynaeve. Then you don't get to complain. You dress yourself. Then I have Bella MVP. Oh, I know what it was. Bella, what's her name? Why can't I remember the girls' names? Egwene would have like drowned in the river, but she just held on to Bella, and Bella like just like towed her along, and I'm like, yes, Bella!
Leapt off a cliff into the water, giant drop, and was like, nope, I will take care of
the horse
rider.
swims her. Everybody else's horses fucking abandoned them, and Bella's like, no, I will get this human to safety. I'm like, oh my god, Bella, best horse. This is something I noticed happening a lot in this section, is that both Two Rivers women are accused of being bullies or bullying. And this is an attitude toward women being in charge, being a bully, that I see in a lot, like it's an older way of thinking. If they were men, they would not be accused of bullying. Egwene gets accused of bullying Perrin. He calls her a bully multiple times, even if it's in a loving way, because she says we're going to take turns riding the horse. She is being kind to him and taking leadership, and he's calling her a bully. And I don't love that. So that's my first, I think, really feeling of this author not writing women well, is just his own prejudice coming out of like women who are in charge are perceived as bullying and bossy. I loved Bella glaring at Perrin when he goes to mount up because he's a heavier rider, and like the mare stare. He even knows about the mare stare. Like clearly this author has been around horses. Yeah, and then again I have the new guy, Bjorn is what I'm calling him, mentions how bossy Egwene is, even though she's done literally nothing except make a plan. They weren't coming up with a plan, so she came up with a plan, and he was like, she always so bossy. Like, well then you come up with a plan. And my last note is, do the Gleeman skills that Matt and Rand are learning during their sailing experience come up again?
Yes, multiple times. It's a big plot beat.
I was curious, because I'm like, that seems like it'd be something that you could reuse. They're sitting here, they're learning how to do all of these things. Might as well have them be good at it later. Even if it's just like little things that you touch on, like he remembers how to play the flute or something. Like it doesn't even need to be a plot point. Remember how we learned to be bards on that extended ship trip?
If you remember the beach scene from Barbie, Rand plays that out multiple times.
Okay, so we have a lot of that, like, let me play my guitar at you. So that's what I've got so far. Do you have any more thoughts, Adam, on my experience through Wheel of Time so far?
So I won't defend Jordan much for at least so far, what they've written of women in this book. He definitely, this book was written in the 90s, the 80s, something like that, and they're very much the couples snipe at each other, and they both think each other's the ball and chain, and they will, when they're in women's perspectives in the first couple books, they will negatively deride the men, and when they're in men's perspectives, they'll negatively deride the women.
And just also the idea that, like, if women ever take charge, they're being bossy or bullying. Versus if you swapped it for any of the men, no one would bat an eye that they came up with the plan and enacted the plan. If the guy was walking along and he was like, hey, woman, we're going to take turns riding, she wouldn't question it. Yeah. Like, cool.
I've never really noticed how, like, calm this section is compared to much of the rest of it. And the pacing is a little bit weird here because we suddenly split into multiple POVs, and every POV has a calm point.
Yeah, not a lot's going on.
And it probably would have been better done to, like, jazz up some of these arcs, so that they were coming into traumatic conflict at different times, but they're all like lulls together, climax together, lulls together, climax
and
together.
usually you want to climax together, but in this case, like I would have had some, like one party is doing some action maybe while another party is, so you can have the rhythm for the reader of action, rest, instead of rest, and then maybe some action. It's a lot of resting. And like I'm interested, especially like the hippies are kind of cool, and I'm interested in the world building, but also it's going very slowly, and I'm starting to zone out a little bit. It's like, okay, can something attack us, please? And I will say, in Perrin's, the mildest of defense for Perrin. Mildest of defense. Bella is an older horse, and he mentions that she's a smaller horse, and he mentions that he's a heavy rider, and Bella also doesn't appreciate that he's a heavy rider. So I will forgive him a little smidgen because he's trying to save the horse. He doesn't have to call her bossy about it, or bully. No, he doesn't have to call her a bully about it, but he's trying to save the horse, and so for that he earns like a smidgen, like a one point. All right, well, we're gonna stop now, and we're gonna go watch Wheel of Time season 1, so then we can go watch season 2, because I don't remember what really happened in season 1. So yay! And I will try to not combine all of these things in my head with my reading experience. That's probably the worst way to do it, but it's the way we're doing it.
Fevered dream,
Like,
all meld together.
What is happening? All right, see you for the next section.
Sing of Manatharin, wait for the blood of Aemon.
So tonight I listened to more, obviously. Let's see if I can remember what happened, because there's a lot of like the same thing happening over and over again, just slightly different. The big thing that happened was 2 of our main parties lost their dads. So Rand and Matt lost Tom in a fight. Tom was like, they were fighting, and Tom was like, go, and I'll hold them off. And Rand is convinced that he's dead. I know that he's not, because I am familiar with these books. Perrin and Egwene
Yes, good job.
also lost their dad eventually. It had to take them a little while, in the form of Wolfbjorn,
Elias Machira.
who also, I forget what happened to him, but they got separated from him, also in an attack of some kind, I think. And we got very little of the Moraine Lan Nynaeve group. I really struggle with Egwene and Nynaeve. I don't know why, but their names just leave my brain. We get very little of them in the section that I read. They're just like still just going along.
Yep.
And then we spent the most time with Matt and Rand, and not as much, but still some with the other two. Matt and Rand is the ones that feels very circular. They go to a farm, they go to an inn, they go to a farm, they go to an inn. Stuff happens to them at these places, and they have to leave. That like keeps happening over and over again. I mean, it sounds boring when I describe it, but it's movement. It's actually not that uninteresting to read. It's just like, it is just that. Farm, inn, bad guys, bad guys, bad guys.
We're rewatching the first season of the show now, so that we can come into the second season fresh. But it's interesting that the show chose basically one farm and one inn.
I really like that the show streamlined it, honestly. Then just like, I can't keep track of these farms and inns. It's the same thing over and over.
And different things happen to them, and they do give an explanation for it later on. A very light explanation at the end of the book, and I think they go deeper into it later on after that. But there's a reason why all the funky stuff just keeps happening to Matt and Rand.
I assume the funky stuff keeps happening to Matt and Rand because Rand is the dragon, and like,
nope,
no? Is it Matt's fault because of his stupid dagger?
Yes.
Yeah, Matt has this thing going on with the dagger that he stole because he's a child. Honestly, I like what they do with it in the book better than what they do with it in the show. In the show, he just gets like real sickly and like goes full like Gollum or whatever, everybody who touches the One Ring. In the book, it's different. Like, he just gets real suspicious of everybody. And apparently evil stuff is following them because of that. I assumed it was for the other reason, but yeah. So, like, I like that better. I don't really like cursed objects. It's one of my least favorite fantasy tropes. And this one, the show is doing it exactly like every cursed object that I've seen, and the book is actually doing it differently. So I like the book better.
And it actually does play multiple pivotal roles throughout the story too. Like, this cursed object actually has impact, and like wasn't just a curse; it provided lessons characters needed to learn to do the right thing.
And it makes Matt's character like crabby and act out of character without making it like blatantly obvious, where you wonder why his friends don't notice that he's obviously cursed. And then I'm just gonna follow their storyline, and then I'll go back for Perrin and Egwene.
Yes.
Okay.
And Bella.
And Bella, yes, I'll go back for them. So, as far as I got, they had just had another big encounter where I'm pretty sure that Rand called lightning. I think it was Rand calling, like a lightning bolt.
What was the encounter?
They were at an inn. They were cornered by dark friends, and a lightning bolt struck the inn. And then Matt went blind for a hot second, but he's fine. He got over it. He got better. Am I correct in that it was Rand that called lightning?
Yes,
Okay.
you are correct.
Yeah. And then the boys had to flee, and then they went more places, just fleeing around. And Matt had just gotten his sight back when I reached the end of my reading session tonight. And then going back for Perrin and Egwene, they hung out Sorry.
Did Rand get sick?
Yes, he did, but it was such a blip that I didn't really register it that much because Matt was having bigger problems.
This is spoiler, like reading underneath. This is one of the seeds that Robert Jordan puts in, is that early on you have a description from Moraine describing it to Nynaeve, I believe, of what happens when someone who will learn to channel regardless, like they have no choice, what happens to them in the process they go through. And it's about like desperately needing something, and so you use the power innately, and then you have about a sickness afterwards, and then this cycle keeps repeating until the use of the power and the sickness are like on top of each other, and then 3/4 of people die. And 1/4 make it through, unless they figure out a way to like control the power. And this is one of the ones where it's like these like episodes are closer to each other. There's also like a stage of euphoria that's in it as well. But you can go back to I think this is when Nynaeve and Moraine are hanging out immediately after Shadar Logoth, that they kind of go through that, and then you can kind of like, when you reread it and be like, oh, and
even read it for the first time if you're really canning, you're paying attention.
Really
like I know what's going on, so like I didn't even really. I was like, yeah, he channeled, and of course he's like sick afterward. But like also Matt's fucking blind, so that seems like a bigger deal. I guess it didn't really. I didn't really clock it as much because I already was expecting it to happen with Rand. I'm pretty familiar with the series, and it was just like, oh yeah, of course he did. Of course he got sick afterward because. But if you were reading it for the first time and paying attention for clues, that would be a good clue for you. Okay, anyway, back to Perrin and Egwene.
Yes.
They finished hanging out with the hippies, and they went their separate ways with Wolfman, and then they started being hassled by a whole shit ton of crows. And the crows were winning, which is embarrassing, really. But the crows were winning.
Corvids are cool, alright?
I mean, yes, corvids are cool. I don't like that they're the bad guys.
Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds here. I mean, this isn't the first time this idea has come about that birds could kick our ass.
So they're running and riding and running and riding, and every time we see them, they're running and riding and running, and the wolves are running and riding and fighting, and Perrin is just full on, like, can understand the wolves at this point, and like totally tuned in with them. They think that they've gotten away. They get separated from their respective dad. I don't remember exactly how they got separated from their respective dad.
Well, what happened to them?
They got away from the crows, and they were all like, haha, we have escaped. And then I feel like something else attacked them, but for some reason I'm having a brain fart as to what it was. There were so many things attacking people in this section. Well, I know that the White Cloaks showed up. I just didn't remember that was what got rid of their dad.
Because, and Bella plays a big role here. Bella and Egwene and Perrin are all hiding in the statue of Archer Hawkwing. And Bella isn't as good at hiding as the other two.
On account of she's a horse. So
So, and like Elias and the wolves were like trying to lure them away and scare them off while they hid.
Okay, so they just kind of fucked off, and we don't really know what happened to them at this point. Do they know what happened to Bjorn?
So, once Perrin blacks out, no, we lose.
Okay.
We both Perrin and
so
we
we just kind of lost track of him, which is
them.
why I didn't remember what happened to him because the book just like didn't really tell me. I remember all of that, and I knew they got captured by the White Cloaks, but I couldn't quite place like when that happened in relation to when Elias went missing from the story. So yes, I do remember them getting captured by the White Cloaks. They are now captured by the White Cloaks. Things are not going well because they're all failing their bluff checks, and so they're just. When I last left them, they were being like taken somewhere, I think. Mm-hmm. But I don't. That's about as far as I got with them. So I think that is all of the things that happened. And now I'll get to my notes. This is kind of turning out to be a long thing, but Perrin gets a boner for the first time apparently when the girls are dancing. There's a bunch of dancing girls, and Perrin is just so confused by being turned on by them. It was like, sweetie.
He's embarrassed more than confused.
He's also confused. He's like, why are the girls turning me on? It's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe they're doing sexy dances, sweetie.
What I got for it more is why are the girls not leaving me alone? Not why are they not how does my boner work?
They're not leaving you alone because you like a hunky wolf boy. Like, I understand that in the books that the Way of the Leaf people are just like a little bit more of a cult, I think, is what they're supposed to be. But right now, what we've got from them, like, it just feels like the book's message is really, like, anti-pacifism, and I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I'm not a pacifist, but it definitely seems like the main characters and the characters that we're supposed to side with are, like, scoff.
Elias respects the Way of the Leaf, but does not agree with it, and Perrin, at this juncture, does not understand it. But grows, like, through, and not in this book, but through the series, grows to respect it and long for it.
Because right now they're definitely in that mode of, like, oh, silly pacifists. In the end, everyone will need to defend themselves and kill.
And I mean, like, yeah, the characters at this point are definitely that.
Then I am once again a Nynaeve stan. I know from what I've gathered from, like, talking to Carrie and stuff, that her arc is that she needs to get her temper under control. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that she really even has a temper. She is a woman who has been talked down to, belittled by the villagers who she's supposed to be in charge of. Behind her back, she must know. They belittle her and talk about how, like, she's not a fit leader, she's too young, all this stuff. She's trying to get her people back who were stolen. She's dealing with Moraine, who at least Nynaeve believes Moraine thinks that she's better than her. She's dealing with Lan, who is just stoic and obnoxiously so at this point. Like, I don't see a temper there at all. I see somebody who's actually a little more restrained than I think they would be. I think it's completely unintentional on the author's part, Robert Jordan, right? That's
yes.
The other. I think it's completely unintentional on Robert Jordan's part, but I think he is falling into a trope, an idea that is harmful and still pervasive for women, wherein women are meant to control their emotions at all times. If you're ever going to take a woman seriously, she had better be in full control of her emotions. The second she shows an emotion, you can dismiss her because now she's being hysterical. And so I think a little bit of that is creeping into Robert Jordan and his arc for Nynaeve, because I think, at least right now, she is perfectly reasonable. No, you just don't like her having any emotions, and she has this whole talk with Moraine, I think, or no, maybe it's Lan, about, like, how women, Aes Sedai are women. So it's like this whole society of women who are taught that to be taken seriously, they can't show emotions.
I like what you're saying, what you see there, because I've actually, in my rereads, come to the conclusion that the Aes Sedai are wrong. Mm-hmm. They say you can't have emotion and control the power, and to them, and the Aes Sedai say this multiple times throughout the series, that Nynaeve shouldn't be according to the philosophy of magic that the Aes Sedai understand, Nynaeve shouldn't even be able to channel when they're angry. Being angry should make it completely impossible. So their understanding of it is flawed, as Nynaeve demonstrates. And yeah, I don't think you need to be emotionless to be successful in channeling. I think the Aes Sedai understanding is more flawed than even the books show.
Perrin is pretty chill about being able to share thoughts with wolves. Like, he acclimates to it real quick. And he's just like, this is the thing that he's like the dog that gets his head stuck in a fence and it's just like, this is how I am now.
I mean, that analogy is more precise, more accurate than I would have anticipated.
I'm a savvy reader. I pick up on things.
But in Perrin's defense, what's going on here? There's 3 people in the wilderness, and wolves are talking to him, and one of the 3 people is like, "Yeah, that's a thing wolves do." What?
That's completely normal. Does he? If he did, I missed it. It went by so fast. Does he ever bring it up with Egwene? Is it Egwene? Yeah,
yes,
it's Egwene. Does he ever bring it up with Egwene, or is he just like, no, of course girls wouldn't be able to hear what wolves are saying?
I do not think Perrin brings it up, but Elias does bring it up in front of both of them that Perrin can do it.
Okay.
So we never on screen have Perrin and Egwene talking about it. My guess is they never really do, based on some of the things that happen in the latter books.
Okay.
Perrin shows up in places because of wolf stuff, and Egwene's just like, WTF, how did you show up here?
I like to... Okay, now I headcanon that she knows and she just keeps forgetting. Let's see. I felt really bad for Bella because they kept forcing her to run from all of those ravens. And I'm like, she is not a horse that's built for this. She's not a long-riding horse. She is a farm horse.
She is a war horse, dude.
She was a war horse.
She's a retired war horse.
Like, it's a lot for her. That was a lot of running for her. Especially since she had to keep swapping riders, and the heavy guy kept sitting on her, and even though she failed her hide check, I cannot believe her. She did everything else right.
Not something she normally had to specialize in.
Yeah. There was a weird conversation that just gave me the complete ick between Perrin and Elias about... like, mercy killing Egwene. She was, like, right over there. And they were talking about her like it was so dehumanizing.
Well, I believe they were off camera. Like, Egwene
No, she wasn't,
not...
like, listening.
Yeah.
But she was, like, nearby, and they were talking about her like she wasn't even there. And they were talking about her like she was an animal that they were going to have to put down for her own good. And I'm like... I was so upset about it. I thought about it for, like, a while after... It happened right when my... earbud died, so I just sat there thinking about, like, that was creepy and gross, and where the fuck did that come from?
And I mean, Perrin agrees with you and is, like, very disgusted by his own thoughts about it. But Elias is like, no, mercy killing is just a thing you do.
But why was that in the book, Robert Jordan? Why was that in the book? Why did you have 2 men sit down and talk about killing the woman for her own good?
All right, I see.
That is creepy and gross.
Your concern.
Don't put that in your book. All right, moving on from that, we get to the part where they get captured by White Cloaks, and the older White Cloak guy is grandfatherly, and the author will not let you fucking forget it. He's the grandfatherly one in every description, and there's also like other things that he does where he's compared to a grandfather, and I'm like, sweetie, I understand what you're going for. You don't need to call him a grandfather in every single time you describe him.
Maybe you missed it.
There was a weird pause where we stopped to, like, Rand and Matt, we were told, went to a lot of different farms and entertained people and did chores and stuff.
Yes, they
But
did.
we stopped at one specific farm to watch them entertain the farmer and his weirdly horny daughter. Is that a thing?
So, one, it is entertaining at that farm that gives them the idea that, oh, we can use the skills Tom taught us to earn our way in inns.
Okay, I kind of thought they already had that idea.
The elder Griswold was like, I've spent money at an inn for entertainment half as good as this, and they're like, Oh.
So is that all that exists for?
No.
Okay. Is
Elsa-
the weirdly horny daughter evil?
Not technically.
Damn it. I was waiting for her to be a dark friend or something.
So Elsa Grinwald is horny for Rand, and this it demonstrates his tavernness. So in later books, she's at the White Tower as a side
So because
character.
she met this hot boy who showed up and entertained her family for a night, she went to the White Tower?
And tried to become an Aes Sedai.
I see point A and I see point B, but what is the connection? Why was she like, I'm hot for this guy and therefore I will go to the White Tower?
So it wasn't because she was hot for the guy. It's because Rand is a Taviran and warps the waft of the weave of the pattern around him. And the strings of that weave and waft are people's lives. And so Elsa Grinwald's life is changed by a mere chance encounter with a random boy.
You know, that's kind of neat, but also I wouldn't say, strictly speaking, necessary for the book. Like, does she do something really important?
I was annoyed by this because a character named Elsa shows up later and does something important as a young, recently raised and trained Aes Sedai.
But it's not the same Elsa?
And they are asked, the author was asked at a con if it was the same Elsa, and he's like, no. Only time in the series they're like the same characters have the same name. Somebody else entirely.
Wow.
Not the same person.
Wow. I know that everything has ripples, and I will say that Robert Jordan is really into showing versus telling, but sometimes, like I didn't need them to go to the farm, and I didn't need to watch them have the idea to go entertain people at inns. They could have just had that idea off page and started entertaining people at inns.
And I mean, it does show Matt good with kids still, and it shows Matt's gradual, decline, and kids still make him nicer, but then, several of the next few farms he's at, he's all, super bitter, and, we can't go talk to the farmer, and, or, they succeed at talking to the farmer, and then, halfway through Matt's dirty glares get them kicked out or get the dog sent on them, so it's it is showing other stuff, too.
I do agree that this author is very much into showing versus telling. He will show you every tiny detail. He will tell you nothing. If you are ever I wanna understand better the difference between showing versus telling. I want to really read a book where there's a lot of showing. These books, this book, this. Apparently, during that sequence, they're talking to the girl, and apparently Rand thinks that Perrin was the social one who told jokes. Rand, sweetheart, no. That's not your friend at all.
I mean, that's kind of an ongoing joke of Robert Jordan, is that all of the boys think another of the boys is better with women. And it's this triangle. They're all awkward and don't know what to do. Eventually, Matt figures it out. He's the only one.
I feel like if Matt wasn't being hampered by the cursed object right now, he would be being too successful. I feel like maybe Robert Jordan gave him the cursed object so he wouldn't be so successful. Because I feel like Matt could just kind of take over and just mini gleeman his way through all the situations, and Rand would just be trailing along behind. Twice in this section that I read, Matt was referred to as a badger in a trap when he is cornered.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
That's a thing.
I mean, I remember...
I don't know if I find him particularly badger-like, but I guess?
Well, Matt is very keen on capturing badgers and setting them loose on the village green and or other places.
I see him definitely more as a weasel. And a weasel that's cornered is also pretty feisty, so I think that would work as well, but...
What non-wolf character would you draw Perrin as?
See, he's the badger one to me. He's, sturdy and stoic, and, he'll get mad and he'll get aggressively mad, but most of the time he just wants to trundle along and mind his goddamn business. That's not, you don't think of badgers as being, the clever, energetic one, which is what I think of Matt as being.
Yeah. And Rand, do you have an animal?
Oh, Rand, right now he'd be a golden retriever. Speaking of Matt and Rand.
Okay.
The shippers must have gone crazy for the Matt/Rand cuddle scene.
There
was some cuddling, and I was like, the show robbed us of the Matt and Rand cuddle scene, and now I feel upset. obviously they had reasons. It was really cold, and Matt had gone blind, and like it was a bit tough situation. There was a lot of very homoerotic subtext going on, and I was like, oh my god, the shippers must have been dying. And then my last note is so many inns.
And it has just begun. There are more inns, and they're even more important, and there'll even be more reoccurring inns.
I don't want any more inns, Adam. There's enough inns.
Is it though?
Yeah.
Is it really? Or perhaps when you look at it deeper, you might find
I
there's
can't-
not quite yet enough.
You know,
inns.
okay, I often tune into Adam listens to The Wheel of Time a lot. Like, he just re-listens to it. It's his comfort, like, book series. And most of the time when I tune in, someone is going to a fucking inn. I'm convinced that nothing else happens in these books. It's just inns all the time.
I mean, it's not all the times, but it's frequently going to or from an inn. So there are places in between the inns.
Yeah, I did listen for a longer session at one point, and they went from an inn to somewhere else, but there was still an inn involved.
Yeah.
I like showing more than telling, but my goodness. All right, this was a long one. I'm sorry it was so long, but I did get through, I feel like, a pretty hefty section of the book tonight. I still have 10 hours left. I don't normally like books this long, so.
Sing of Manatharin, weep for the blood of Amen.
After all this talk about inns, this feels like a perfect place to take a little break. So put your feet up, traveler, and let's talk. Even Robert Jordan, in interviews, has talked about the importance of developmental editing for his books. They're important for everyone's books. Mine, yours, but sometimes finding a developmental editor can feel really daunting. Like, how do you choose? Well, you could choose me. I'm a developmental editor, and with me, you don't have to feel like you're getting some faceless person off of the internet who you've only seen a photo of. You can check out my videos, see if you like my style, have a little chat with me beforehand to figure out what's going to be best for you and your book. And then we can work together, and you can finally say, my book is with my editor. Or if you're not an author looking for an editor for your book, maybe you're a reader looking for something else to read. I've got you there too. I happen to also be an author, and I have some fantasy books that might be right up your street, so go check them out. Available now on Amazon. And now back to your irregularly scheduled program. Alright, so we're at a slightly different spot in hopes that the lighting will be marginally better, because we're filming all these at night, so...
It's different anyways.
Yeah. Alright, so I don't have too many notes for tonight. Did some listening at work. At least the first portion of the night was just more repetitive. Rand and Matt go to various inns, do various things.
So what inn did they start with? Do you know what inn they started with tonight? Well,
they ended up in the big city in the Queen's Gift, the Queen's Favor. Okay.
Blessing. Queen's Blessing.
That's the one they ended
Basil
up.
Gill's Queen's Blessing.
Sure. We're starting to get people back together, so we did start out sort of finishing off the Rand and Matt wander around arc, and they have finally reached the big city that they were looking for, where Matt has gone full cursed object mode and is just sitting in his room like Gollum, and Rand is running around touching things.
Being Taviran.
Yeah, he's just kind of
having
like...
plot points.
He's such a golden retriever. He's like, no thoughts, head emptying his way around the city, and then the plot like just comes to him. Which, yeah. And we do find out a little bit about that. Like, that very ingenious plot point that Robert Jordan put in where the characters have an excuse for the plot continuing to find them. They're just special. They're the special people who the
plot happens
fate
to.
weaves itself around. And I can't decide if that's genius or if I hate it with every fiber of my being. I'm really torn. So on the one hand, I'm like, that's so smart. But the other hand, I'm like, you son of a bitch, now you can do anything and claim it's just because they have this special power and the weave likes them, you know? Yeah, so I don't know. I'm really torn about it. Part of me thinks it's very clever, and the other part of me absolutely loathes it. But
Right.
he wanders around the city. He goes to this library where we meet Loyal, who is weirdly a character who I end up hearing a lot of sections with him in. It's just random, but I feel like I know Loyal already because I hear him in a lot of sections that you.
Well, the
listen
voice
to.
actors who do Loyal have a very distinct voice for Loyal, whereas many of the other characters' voices probably blur together, so their voice probably jumps out.
I maybe start paying attention
Yeah.
more because his voice is grabbing. So he finds out about the fact that he's like a magic fate MacGuffin from Loyal. Then he also decides that he wants to see Logain, the false dragon who's being paraded through town. And
Super smexy Logan.
unfortunately, he gets chased out of the main crowd by yet another dark friend. They're just coming out of every which way.
Did you recognize this one?
No, I did not. Were we supposed to?
I think it's, well, I don't know if they're blatant about it, but it is Patton Fane.
I kind of low-key wondered, but he never recognized him, so I was like, oh, it's probably not. But I was curious if that's who it was. He climbed a wall to watch Logain go past, and then
Like you do.
fell off the wall
Like you do.
into the princess's garden.
In his defense, the princess did go boo
She was
from
also
behind him.
she was also on the wall. It's a little bit her fault, but he falls off the wall into the princess's garden, and it turns out that she's very attracted to men who fall off walls into her garden. So she's immediately like, "Oh, let me help this poor idiot who's fallen into my garden."
She has a habit of taking care of injured animals that fall into her garden, and here the golden retriever fell into her garden.
And her brother's also there. And then he gets presented to the queen, and it goes, I don't want to say well and I don't want to say poorly. It could have gone so much worse, but it also could have gone better. But he did get kicked out and told shoo. But then he goes back to his inn, and the innkeeper is or somebody is there's a lady who's here to see Rand and Matt, and
Innkeeper's pissed off and if you brought the lady Elaine down on us.
I immediately knew that it was Moraine, because as Rand realized moments later, she asked for him and Matt. So I never thought it was going to be the other lady. It was pretty obvious. But
Poor Basil Gill, though, you gave him a heart attack.
Yeah. So that's why I got to the everybody back together is basically where I stopped. So it's a really good place to stop. So now I'm going to rewind and catch up with other characters.
Okay.
Because I kind of just want to cover everybody in their own little sections.
All right.
So then we had Perrin and Egwene.
Yes.
Those are the two. Okay.
And
Bella. And Bella. They had been captured, as I mentioned previously, by White Cloaks, and it wasn't going super well. We didn't get a lot of them from them in this section because they were just being imprisoned. But then we also got Moraine and Lan and Nynaeve and their rescue mission, which was pretty cool. They make a good team. They should do rescue missions more often.
This might be the most seamless plan any group of characters in this series ever pulls off.
In the whole series?
Yes.
God damn, I thought maybe in the book, but in the whole this?
All the beats went to plan, and then they succeeded beyond expectations.
They did not expect the wolves. The wolves were a surprise, but I expected the wolves, but Nynaeve was like, WTF, is the wolves running by me? So they got Perrin and Egwene free and dealt with all of the injuries that they had from the torturing, and then they all went to the city and met back up. What's up?
Well, you forgot the important character here, Bella.
Oh, I usually talk about Bella in my notes, so.
Oh, okay. Well, it was that,
But-
Nynaeve recognized Bella, so that was Bella would not be here without Egwene. Bella would have never left Egwene, so Nynaeve is I gotta get Perrin and Egwene. We need an extra pony.
And then there happened to be an extra nice pony nearby who was Does the nice pony get a name? Do they get to be like a horse character or?
I feel Perrin gives them a name, but I do not recall it.
So they're not like one of the main horses.
No, most of the horses I know of who get names are like Rand's and Matt's. Matt doesn't go through many horses. Rand goes through a lot of horses, but he always like renames them.
I do too. Whenever I get a horse, I name it. All right, so that's where I was. Do you think I missed out on anything super
No.
important?
Other than Bella, no.
Otherwise, I'm gonna go. Bella is always important.
Alright. Now, did we get past the meetup then?
We got to the meetup. They have just met up and they went upstairs. I forgot the very end of this. They went upstairs to deal with the Matt situation because he's all up in there like, hey, everybody, I hate everyone, and little dagger. And Moraine is like, yep, it's the fucking dagger. That's a problem. And that's actually where I ended. So Moraine has recognized the dagger and been like, shouldn't have brought that along, but they haven't started to solve that problem yet. So my first note is Rand punched a dark friend in the face. And that gave me joy. It was such a Rand reaction. Just right in the snoot.
Yes.
One of my favorite Rand moments in the TV show is when he's told that the door is indestructible and then just starts throwing himself at it harder. And this punching this guy in the face gave that same vibe.
Gotcha. I'm tracking.
Rand faced with the problem. He headbutts it. And then I have the dark friends should really be more subtle. If they befriended Rand and Matt first rather than going right for the kill, they'd have better luck.
Right? Be like, oh, you need a ride? Let me give you a ride. Here's some food.
Yeah, I keep being suspicious of every innkeeper they come across, and the innkeepers always turn out to be good people, and I'm like...
Always.
So far. Who did it?
Four Kings, Lightning Bolt, come on.
Oh, was that the innkeeper's fault?
That was the innkeeper.
Okay, so one innkeeper out of many innkeepers.
Well, I mean, that innkeeper wasn't a dark friend, but he was definitely going to try to... Well, it was very heavily implied that he was going to try to rob them.
The dark friends just don't seem like their strategy is very good. They
No.
just, like, show up and are like, we're going to stab you right away, giving them, our
Now, the
heroes,
lady,
plenty of time.
The lady in green did do a good job. Almost got him.
Then I have exposition peasant when they were riding in the back of that guy's cart and he was just telling them about like the political situation. Another thing that I've noticed about this author, I mentioned before that he has a very simple, straightforward style, which he makes work for him. If he was flowery and had to include every single detail,
Yeah.
the books would just be like
burying us.
you
We'd be...
couldn't lift it.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed that he does, which I try to help people overcome in their own writing when I'm developmentally editing for them, is he'll get stuck on a word. So like he'll use that same word over and over again in close proximity, and everybody's brain can do that. And it doesn't really matter what word. It can be something very simple. Grab a word, use it again and again. But the most egregious was his sharp eyes were as sharp as a knife.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I might have picked that sentence out and asked someone I was editing for to maybe look at it again and see if they wanted to use sharp, like, in
Sharp
the same
eyes, sharp
word,
as a knife.
as sharp
Those
as a
sharp
knife.
eyes were yup.
So then I got to Loyal, and Loyal wanting to join Rand in his adventuring really reminded me of like a video game where like this new character wants to join your party, and then you can be like yes or no.
Yeah.
And Rand was like no, but it doesn't matter because the video game forces you to take the character later anyway.
But I really, really want to go.
Actually,
Yes or no?
I'm coming. I have Eldib being friendly, heart.
Nynaeve is with
Nynaeve
Moraine.
is with Moraine and
initially.
Lynn. And she was sitting with all three horses for a minute,
Mhm.
and Eldib was like being friendly and like looking for pets, and I was like, oh, it's like our Eldib.
Indeed.
We picked the right name for her. And then I had another own horses moment when she found Bella and she gave Bella some pets, and then the horse next to Bella wanted pets as well.
Yeah, I remember that moment. Yeah.
It's adorable. I can't, like, very clearly Robert Jordan is familiar with horses. Like, I've never seen horses written like this by somebody who's not familiar with
yeah.
horses. Then later I have Nynaeve put fantasy icy hot on Perrin.
Yes.
And then I have not me simping for Logain. He wasn't even there very long, and I was like, hey, Logain. His description made him sound real sexy, but so now in the show and the book, I am simping for Logain. I have Rand just wanders around and bags himself a princess.
The princess begged him, actually. Fell out of a tree.
It's skills, man. And then finally, I have everyone is back together, and the boys are all being Debbie Downers. I mean, Matt has a good reason. He's got a cursed item, but Perrin decided to take this moment to just be like absolutely doom and gloom as well.
Well, Perrin feels he's got a cursed power.
Yeah, but why does he feel that? The wolves are awesome.
I mean, yes, the wolves are awesome, but Perrin thinks that he will lose control and that the wolves represent the animalistic side of themselves, and that is a bad thing.
Oh, that's stupid. They just think nice, happy wolf thoughts. These boys.
They all orange cats?
Yeah. Like, Rand can just go out without the brain cell and things work out for him. The other two kind of need the brain cell. All right, so those are all my notes for tonight. Do you have anything to add? Or
Those are all your notes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with it, but I like Lesby Nerdy's interpretation of the Perrin rescue scene. Mm-hmm. They feel that Nynaeve caught the first lightning bolt. And that from the initial perspective that we're going through the story, there's a break between the first lightning bolt, and there are several seconds then before the series of lightning bolts come. I re-listened to it once and I was mixed. But I like the interpretation. And then, Nynaeve called the first one, and then Moraine's like, well, I guess we're starting because
we're calling lightning. Here
none
we
of
go.
the white cloaks are using female magic right now, so I don't know. I like Lesbian Nerdy's interpretation, and then it would be a reason for like why it went off so flawlessly because Moraine was going to wait a while yet, but then Nynaeve was like, no, now lightning bolt.
All right. Well, we should end this because it is bedtime, but I will check back in whenever I get reading more.
Sing of Manatharin, wait for the blood of Aemon.
All right, hello. We are back. I don't need that in my ear. I just got back from work. Adam just got done dyeing his beard. We're looking scraggly as usual, but who cares? Because great news. I finally finished the book. I was really worried. I was getting to the part where I knew that it was near the end of the book, and I'm like, how long is this ending at? Like, how long is the climax of this book? Because we certainly spent enough time in the middle going to various inns, so...
The climax of this book is pretty tight. I don't know if it's the tightest of the series, but it's definitely no last battle.
I should say not. Although I didn't write this in my notes, but I did notice that he named the last chapter, The Last Chapter.
Yeah.
Every now and then, I swear he just has a brain fart, or puts in a placeholder and forgot to remove it, and now it's just there forever. He's like, I'm gonna name this character with one eye, Uno. That's what you name a one-eyed cat. I'm sorry. And he's like, oh, I've reached the last chapter of my first book. What should I name it? I'm gonna call it The Last Chapter for now, and I'll come back and fill that in later. Never came back and filled it in later. All right,
Got some iconic heft to it.
Okay. It does, but it was not the last chapter, as evidenced by his 13 more books or whatever it is.
It's the last chapter of
that is book. The last chapter of that book specifically. My scooch is a little closer here so you can see the weird shadows our living room lights make even better. We'll get dye on my shirt. Alright, so can I remember everything that happened? Because it was a lot of things. So they had just dealt with the Matt dagger situation as best they could. Take the dagger... Cat? They couldn't actually take the dagger from him yet because it's still too ingrained or whatever, but they could block out the effects of it for the moment. Is my understanding.
Yeah, Moraine is not powerful enough to completely heal Matt of the dagger. They need help from their sisters.
So he's still running around with that dagger, but he's no longer acting like Gollum. So they get done with that. They left the world's most accommodating innkeeper, and they went
Basil
to
Gill.
Yeah,
Everyone's favorite innkeeper.
seriously, what that man was just like, would you like my kidney? Here's my kidney. He was very accommodating. I kept waiting for him to turn out to be evil because he was like so accommodating. I'm like, oh, he's up to some shit. And then he doesn't seem to have been up to some shit. He's just a really, really accommodating guy. Let's see. Then after that, is that when they go to Shynara or whatever it is? Or no, they go to the Ways first.
Yes.
I can't remember which
They
order things go in.
sneak out the super secret back exit way of this guy who's innkeeper who's definitely not up to shit.
Yeah. Is he up to shit? Like later do we find out that he's up to shit?
Well, I mean, it's like, what kind of shit is he up to?
Oh,
though?
so he's probably just like smuggling or doing something shady under the table, but not like, he's not a dark friend.
No, he's definitely not a dark friend.
Okay.
But he is like...
Suspicious, but like
there's a reason Tom chose him to be his good
like
innkeeper
suspicious,
friend.
but in a chaotic good way, probably.
Yes.
All right, so okay, they go to the Ways first, which is like this method of travel where you walk through this gateway and then you wander around in the darkness for a while, and the Ogier looks at a series of signs to guide you. I really didn't need that many signs, but they go through the Ways. It's dangerous. They get out. Then they go to Shynara.
Yes.
And we spent, for how much time we spent there, or we felt like we spent there in the show, we did not spend a whole lot of time there in the book.
Mm-hmm.
We were just like, hi, bye.
One
Like,
night, in and out.
We stayed long enough to find out that Lan was royalty, and then we buggered off.
And that Golem was following them.
Oh, you mean Paddington. Yes, and Paddington was also present. I think Paddington is my favorite villain. Of the villains that I have experienced in Wheel of Time, I like Paddington.
They are not bad. I think the show is coloring you. Like,
Yeah,
I
like
think
him in the show a lot.
Book Paddington is, well, I mean, book one Paddington. I gotta remember your book one Paddington too. Okay, I'll not judge you.
Mostly that's probably because the only other dark friends we meet are really stupid and just run it Rand with a dagger going, I'm gonna kill you. And that's their whole strategy. So any bad guy with some strategy, I'm like, that one. Then they go to find the Eye of the World, which is inside the Blight, which is this weird place that is like overgrown with like evil, and like the trees try to kill you, and
Evil
everything
ants.
wants to kill you, so just don't touch anything because it's trying to kill you.
Yep.
And they meet the Green Man. I have thoughts about the Green Man in my notes. They don't hang out with him for super long. And then they go to the Eye of the World where they find a couple of, like, generals. Like, evil generals is what I kind of understood them to be.
So the evil generals find them. They go
Okay.
down into the eye first. They meet the Green Man at his fancy place, and then his fancy place is around a cave. And they go in the cave, and they go down the cave, and that's the cave is the eye, bottom of the cave is the Eye of the World. Then they come back, and the evil generals have found them because of Matt and the dagger.
Okay. I missed that little tidbit. I thought they were just kind of hanging around there because they couldn't quite leave yet.
And where he followed him, an old friend, an old enemy, in reference to Matt.
And they fight.
And then they fight.
And then Rand
Runs away.
he runs away and then he goes Super Saiyan. And he does a big explosion away from everybody else so nobody else sees his explosion. And he like embodies for a hot minute Luce Theron and uses a fire sword and makes explosion. And then he goes back to himself, and after a hot minute of being like, who am I, where am I, etc., he wanders back over to his friends there, and everything's okay now. And he thinks that he's won, but then Moraine has to ruin everybody's day and be like, nah, you didn't win. You won for a minute, but the world is not saved because there's like 13 more books.
You won a battle, but it was not the last battle.
Yeah. If that was the last battle, it would have been very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
We did it! There's like hinting that like Moraine knows he's the dragon, but is keeping that really, really to herself. And
Well, she tells Egwene and Nynaeve because they will be Aes Sedai. But yeah. And
I wasn't
Lan.
sure. I didn't think she told them that he was the dragon. I just thought that she told them that he could channel.
Pretty sure she told them that he is the dragon.
Okay.
Largely because they'd be like, why are we keeping a man who can channel around? But it's because he's the dragon, specifically.
Okay.
And the fact that, like, all of the stuff they bring up from the Eye of the World is kind of like, this is dragon shit. And, yeah, so, like, even if she doesn't explicitly tell Nynaeve and Moraine, they're like, he can channel, we killed Forsaken, there's dragon shit here, and we're not gentling him, he's the dragon.
Because we're in Rand's point of view at the end, and Moraine is keeping a lot of stuff really, like, low-key, I was a little bit confused about what she had revealed to whom.
And I suppose it's not explicitly spelled out in that moment, but, like, yeah, they know he's the dragon. The only ones that don't know are poor Matt and poor Perrin. Loyal also does not know.
I'm sure the horses don't know. Bella probably knows.
Probably knows.
So that was finishes my reading, and now we'll go to my notes. My first note is that Loyal and Adam have the same storytelling habits. Loyal was talking about, yeah, everybody says I just go on and on for too long, and I'm like, yeah.
I mean, I'd be more offended, but you did just compare me to Loyal, so...
It's not a bad comparison. Kat, what are you doing in there? There is no
Mischief.
chicken. He's trying to find the chicken, because I had it out earlier, and they gave him some, and now he's, like, destroying the kitchen. So I have a lot of questions about the Ogier that I want to know if they get answered in later books.
Okay.
Because, to my understanding, they are the only, like, non-human race that's not evil. And
The Green Man is also
yeah, but he's like
non-human
kind of
race
more of
that's
a
not evil.
like a god thing. Like the Ogier are just like around, like vibing. They built stuff. They're like elves, basically, but
I was thinking more of like Ents, but
they're Ents plus elves in my opinion.
okay.
And I'm like, the only other animal creatures that we see are evil, and I'm assuming that a lot of the evil creatures were like constructed by the evil, and that's how they came about. So, like, do we ever find out how Ogier came about? Did they evolve from humans?
Yes, we do find out how Ogier came about. They have a book of something, and that book allows them to move between worlds, planes, something.
So they're from another dimension?
Kind of. Like, they don't give us details, but at the end of the series, they're like, we're gonna open the book again and leave y'all because this world's going to shit. Bye. And then
okay.
But then like Loyal is like, no, we need to stay here and fight with the humans. But like they talk about it and have the conversation, and Rand's like, you would just leave? And I was like, well, of course. Wheel turns and ages come and go, and we have to leave. Otherwise, we can not be here when we come again using the book. So, like, he kind of does, like, they weren't here, they used the book to get here. At some point, they will use the book to leave so that they aren't here, so that when the wheel comes again, they won't be here, and then they'll use the book to come back.
That is really fucking weird. What, Robert Jordan, why? Like, maybe he intended to do some other races?
There are the snakes and foxes, the Aelfin and the Elfin, who are from a different plane. Like, they are also from a different reality, and they push doors into our reality. So they definitely, and like in the world of dreams, you can get glimpses into other realities or worlds where they have other creatures. But yeah, this plane of existence has humans and then creatures who were mixed with humans to make evil monsters. I just was not expecting like multi-dimensional beings in this book. Sorry, I keep yawning. By the way, it's late at night. I got home from work. You know, I get home from work late because I work second shift, and then we watched an episode of Wheel of Time. So I'm sleepy. So that basically answers my questions that I had about Ogier. At one point, Rand, their names are too similar. Rand is informing Moraine that Loyal is coming along, and the conversation basically was like,
I found a new party member. And then Rain was like, dope. And then they just like carried on.
I'm pretty sure Moraine said the wheel weaves as the wheel.
Yes, she did, which is her version of dope. And then he just carried on. In the book, unlike the show, people are warned about bad things beforehand. They still have to go and do the scary thing, but they know that it's gonna be scary instead of just finding out about it right when it's about to eat them.
Oh yeah, they warned them about Manchichin beforehand in the book. Which is,
I was like, and that didn't make it any less scary. So I don't know why the show feels like it can't like tell the characters anything before they go places.
Show don't tell. Telling takes time.
Yeah, but even then, all right. There was more of Aldib being friendly, and I love that little detail that she's like a friendly pony.
Who was she friendly with?
I think whichever girl rescued her before.
That would have been Nynaeve.
Nynaeve? Okay. Having horses in the ways seems real fucking dangerous, and I'm surprised we're doing it, but okay. Then I had a hysterical moment because they reached a bridge, and when the characters were we just finished watching the first season of Wheel of Time again, just to prepare for the second season, and when they were going through the ways in the show, they're crossing this bridge, and like there's no handrails or anything. And I'm like, all these fantasy places, they gotta make sure that there's never any handrails. But in the book, it is specifically mentioned that the bridge has handrails. And I died. Mandar, the horse, used warhorse tactics, and it made me happy. Then I have someone give that baby a sword. Lan's parents, probably.
Yep, pretty much.
It's like, here, baby.
They placed it in his baby hand.
Yeah, have you ever seen a baby? They just flail around. What's he supposed to do with that?
They grab stuff. You put something in front, they're like, and stick it in his mouth.
That baby needs a sword. Then I let out an audible, like, snort of amusement when I remembered that they were called the Mountains of Doom.
Well, I think this is part of the homage to the Lord of the Rings, because they have Mount Doom in the Lord of the Rings. Like, well, I'm going to nod of respect, but also outdo you. I don't just have one mountain of doom.
Sure, I think that he was just... I swear that some of these are just filler names that he never went back and... Alright, then I have my thoughts about the Green Man are mostly that the Green Man thing grinds the momentum to a halt, and I think the show was right to cut him out. And I'm fighting words.
Those aren't fighting words. Like, I am dissatisfied with how the show presents the Eye of the World.
They were just like, danger, 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 oh my gosh, danger, we need to get to the Eye of the World. And then they ran into the Green Man, and the momentum stopped dead so they could make flower crowns.
You're right, but we need that, like, a story can't just be all like, shoop. In tempo all the time.
Yeah, but like we were in the climax, and he stopped the climax. So we're doing the climax, and most climaxes would just continue to go up until the big final battle. He went, and then back up. Like, what are you doing? He just put a speed bump in the middle of his climax, and I just not for me personally. It was a momentum killer, and I didn't know why he had that in there.
Yep.
I think he just thought it was a cool idea, and he didn't know where to put it, so he stuck it there. He's like, I like the Green Man, the idea of the Green Man. I'm gonna put it in my climax. I did like...
Rip on Semesta.
I'm gonna rip on it. What's a Semesta?
Shemesta is his name.
Oh.
That is that Green Man's individual personal name. The
Well,
Green Men are a species.
He's dead now.
He is Shemesta.
I did
I'm
like...
sad.
I did like...
Loyal and I are
Loyal
sad.
was sad, but can I say the thing that I did like about the ending?
Okay.
I liked that this ending had everybody together, even though Rand did have to finally have his moment of like the hero goes alone. They were all attempting to fight the generals together, and that was nice. I liked that. I didn't like how much Rand was like separated from the others at the end of the TV show season. I was a little bit confused by who knew what in the ending, so maybe this is a moot question. But I have, is Rand using the one power to convince his friends that he fell down a hill and the baddie just spontaneously died? Because it works. They all believe him.
The boys must really only share one brain cell between them, because this story has so many holes in
He
it.
literally is just like, I fell down a hill, and the bad guy spontaneously combusted, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, sounds right. Mhm, yeah, bad guys are always doing that. And like, he must be using the one power without meaning to convince them. I'm gonna continue to believe that he was unconsciously using the one power, because I cannot handle that his friends just believe that story.
No, that has always bothered me. Like, come on, Moraine, come up with a better story. Help him cover, like, yeah, we killed him. You can say, we killed him. That's not a lie. Rand killed him, sure,
You
but
helped.
we killed him. Yeah, we killed him. What?
Our names are in the credits.
Yeah, no, this really bothered me too.
Okay.
Every time I look at it, I'm like, ah. But I like your headcanon. He's using the power. Moraine wouldn't be able to tell. That works. Yeah, he's using the power. Yes,
Gonna
definitely.
go with that.
Definitely
Because-
using the power.
Yeah, if you wait long enough, the boss just kills himself. Alright, this has been a very long video, but I figured I would leave like some overall thoughts about what I
Yes.
thought of the Eye of the World. There are definitely elements that I really liked. And I enjoyed, for the most part, following these characters. They could be a little bit no thoughts head empty sometimes, but like honestly, they seemed, especially the boys, like fairly realistic teenagers.
Ah, yes.
My God, that's a teenage boy. I believe this. Yes.
Yes.
And the plot was okay. It was enough to keep me engaged. The world was obviously very fully formed. He could probably give you the layout of every single inn that they went to. And like, there are elements that make me want to keep reading, like continue with the series, because I'm like, I want to know how this happens. I want to know this. I want to know what happens with that. But unfortunately, I don't think you have converted me, because there was a sizable portion in the middle where I was like, how long is this
Well, that's
book?
when you watch it or listen to the book on double speed.
I triple speed.
Yes. I think The Eye of the World is the book you will enjoy the most in the series. And I think The Hunt for the Horn is the second book in the series you will also enjoy. Like, I'm pretty confident in saying that. After that, I'd have to see what you enjoyed, but I do feel that after The Hunt for the Horn, the books get less and less something you would enjoy.
Less and less focused, probably. Like,
There's a lot going on in the world, but you end up getting like microfictions and novellas of other characters that are just like we jump to their POV for a chapter and it's inserted into this book about this other stuff. And like,
I really want the abridged version, where somebody goes in and gets rid of all of the fat, and I can just read the important bits, and I bet you I won't feel like I missed anything.
so what I want to do is and I might eventually do this and then like hand it over to you, is I want Egwene's story, like Egwene's condensed story, to cut out all of the other stuff with other people going on and just read Egwene's story, because like they're my favorite character, and like their arc in the later books is incredible, if you ask me. Like, definitely absolutely amazing and my favorite. And yeah, I would enjoy reading her novel without all the other stuff.
All those other
going
people.
on.
I wish that more fantasy authors wrote horses the way that he writes horses. Like, it's been a long time since I've read a fantasy book that treated horses the way that he treated horses. Like, they had their own personalities, they were their own autonomous beings, they all had their own backgrounds, their strengths, their weaknesses. Like, they had names, like, all of it. He didn't just treat them like easy transportation. He understood that they were animals.
He treats his horses with the detail that he treats his inns.
No, his inns are more detailed.
And it's just that you're a fan of horses, not so much of inns. So you're
less so of inns. But honestly, I do wish that, like, and it doesn't take much. Like, it's not like he ever went in depth about any of the horses. He just remembered that they were also in the scenes, that they would have thoughts and feelings about situations, and that they had different personalities. And, like, That's all it took. Like, I really wish more authors wrote horses. Like, he writes horses. So, that makes me sad that I won't get to see I won't get to meet Pips. That makes me sad. You should just find me all the Pips parts. I'll read the Pips
Is Pips
version.
in the next book? I don't think we get to Pips until book 3, to be honest.
So, to the disappointment of all of the fans, and also all of the haters, I would rate this book at a 3 out of 5 on Goodreads, which I find to be middling. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, it was a fine experience, but it didn't change my life or leave me feeling like really connected to it.
Don't worry, dear. This one might not have, but we've got 14 more to make the magic happen.
It's not. I honestly, like, I might be convinced to read more books in the series. I never say never, but I need a long break.
You need to help me, all of you viewers out there, share with everyone, make your family members hop on and encourage her and upvote. I've been desperately trying for decades to get Julian to read this series with me, and you've helped me get her on this one. Now I need your help further to get us to book 2.
I want to be clear. If I do continue this series, there's going to be a very long gap in between. I cannot back-to-back these books. I will die. Honestly, this is going to put me in a slump, I can already tell, and I'm going to need to read something light and snappy and easy, and probably a thriller.
So not dark?
No. Probably I'm going to grab one of the quick thrillers that I already have from the library. You know, I can crack that one out in a couple of listening sessions and like be able to like turn my brain off. Because the other thing was I felt like I really had to pay attention because then I had to come home and give a book report to you and you guys. So I was like, I can't miss any details. I have to pay attention.
I very much like your headcanon of Rand's totally using the power.
That's the only thing I could think of. I'm like, oh, he must be using... Because we learned earlier that Moraine can use the power to convince people. So I was just like, oh, okay, that's what's probably happening. Tell me that's what's happening.
It's like, when did Moraine use the power to convince people?
At the beginning, when she was convincing them all to leave Emmonsfield.
Oh, right, that's right. I told you, it's not spelled out in this book, but in future books it spells out, and it was borderline illegal stuff. Like, a lot of the shit Moraine does is like illegal to the Aes Sedai. Like the Aes Sedai police are like, no, go to Aes Sedai jail, don't do that. But yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's probably what he's doing, and he just doesn't realize it because he's used the power without realizing it. That was also shortly after we had learned how many times he had accidentally used the power without realizing it. Like when she was like, I went to go give Bella back her stamina and she already had it back.
Yeah.
So I was like, I thought that maybe I was picking up hints that we were supposed to know that Rand was using the power to convince his friends of this very stupid thing that he was saying.
It makes sense within the world, and it makes more sense than Matt and Perrin being that fucking stupid.
They just took the brain cell that they share and threw it. Alright, it is late and I am tired. Thank you all for listening. I have a lot of editing to do.
Thank you all for encouraging my spouse to come on this journey with us and give her all the love and support and thumbs up and comments and interactions so we can get her to go to book 2.
Like 8 people
I need
are
your
gonna
help.
watch this video. 8 people are gonna watch this
I
video.
am going to send it to. I got my work. I'm asking you to do work, but I'm going to do work too.
You got people you're gonna send it to? All right. It won't just be you and Carrie.
No.
Carrie might not even have made it to this point. She might have given up partway through. I'm not going to do my full outro, but I will remind you all that if you like fantasy books that are maybe a little bit more concentrated than The Wheel of Time, I write those. So you can check out, my books are available on Amazon. All the links are in the doobly-doo if you want to find those. So
Check out the doobly-doo.
that's right. All right, Adam, are you ready for the goodbye?
Always
ready. I wanted to mention one thing.
One thing.
I forgot. At the end of the book, there was an interview with Robert Jordan, which was adorable to listen to. Little spooky, because I'm like, he's dead, and that's his actual voice. But he talked about, is very vindicating, because he talked about how, as authors, it's important that we get editors because we are too close to our own books to understand what we might be missing. So he legitimately spelled out what I told so many people here on my channel, where it's like, you think that you've put it in because you know it, but you need someone else to look at it and tell you what you thought you had put in is not there for the rest of us. So please put that in. And it was really just kind of cool. And yeah, cool and vindicating to hear such a big popular author talk about like the importance of editing and how like you aren't just amazing right out of the gate and your first draft is perfect. So anyway, that was my last thing. But now are you ready for the goodbye?
Always ready.
3, 2, 1. Bye.
Bye.
Cry for Manhattan long ago. Long ago. This is Sparta!
Actually, this is just Julie and Greystokes' channel, but here on my channel, we love us some patrons. Patrons like Sunny Shy, Nico, Saga, Sarah, Kat, 78 Kilograms of Shade, Veda, Ingrid, Roma, Pansing Pony, Julius the Nice Dragon, Haley, Sam, Kira, Kohikaro, Mooney, Maria, Kristen, Bear, Jojo Bookish, Lauren, Robin, Ursula, KJ, Lafone, Amanda, Celia, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Marine, Kit, Hidden Glade, The Unraveled Legion, Belle Sterling, Patrick, and Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah. Thanks so much for your continued support, everyone. And if you would like to become a patron, you totally can. And then you can hear me say your name at the end of my videos.